At this rally to replace Ragsdale, this group says in addition to banning books, the superintendent has failed to address discrimination and safety issues.
With poor decisions related to students experiencing racism, homophobia, anti-Semitism, with parents upset with his school safety policies.
The fireworks started before the meeting.
I am very disappointed in the behavior of Ragsdale supporters in the parking lot this evening.
A melee broke out when the sign-up sheet for public comment was moved to a new location just 30 minutes before the meeting started.
It became like this kind of battle with so many people fighting and pushing each other.
That's what I want They moved the line.
I want to confirm with you guys, the man in the blue shirt was the one shoving everything.
And he knows good and well he ran, Becky, sprinted with this out here after they told us for 3 hours to wait inside there to see.
Have you ever seen sign-up moved out here before?
The sign-up has never been moved out here before, and they told us to wait back there. We had 15 people in line, and they're going to see a problematic...
A number of people voiced their concerns directly to the board, calling for Superintendent Ragsdale to be removed.
Superintendent and David from Libs of TikTok, since he now plays a significant role in leading the school district. Turns out the superintendent, the one who tells us to leave politics at the house, is one of the biggest Republican activists in the state. From giving rip-roaring speeches, making fun of teachers he fired at Republican women's breakfasts, unlawfully indoctrinating teachers, staff, and students on the Pledge of Allegiance, to demonstrating his faithful discipleship to Chris Rufo by creating fake conflict over CRT, allowing Libs of TikTok and Moms for Liberty control of the school district, exclaiming parents' rights, but only as a guise to advance in our schools a right-wing education agenda that whitewashes American history and marginalizes LGBTQ+ students. And I can now add, from the very painful bruise on my arm, allowing the Cobb mob GOP to assault me outside. The truth is that none of us, if you really cared about the rights of families, y'all wouldn't label any parent who dares send you an email or call you a left-wing activist. The truth is that none of us could compete with Chris Ragsdale's political activism. As a community angered by the superintendent's politically driven decisions and ambitions to one day work for Brian Kemp, we'd like to hasten his departure to the Gold Dome. And serve him a pink slip and notice of termination, along with his favorite politician's famous phrase, "You're fired." And we're going to leave it with your secretary who does your dirty work.
Our next speaker is Jeff Hubbard.
Just the facts. Fact. CCAE saw a problem with the Helen Ruffin Reading Bowl books, and on August 7th, emailed 2 members of the executive cabinet. I received a one-line reply the next day, and that's been it. What were these 3 things I asked for? That no teacher will have to risk disciplinary concerns by having Cobb students read these books for the competition. CCPS will allow our schools and district to participate in the Reading Bowl, provided parents sign a permission slip form understanding some of the books may have material considered controversial or divisive. And that the CCPS leadership within our ELA reading department will sign off after vetting these books in order to have the books in the Reading Bowl. These were 3 simple requests. Vet the books, approve the books at the county level, have guarantees that nothing would happen to them. Nothing. August 25th, we put out a press release after the day that we had the Helen Ruffin Reading Bowl Steering Committee withdraw, saying we supported a book and material policy. We're all for that, if implemented and correctly followed. That was not followed in either the Renderly situation or the 3 books. The board needs to get a new policy if something comes to a district-level complaint, because the local school complaint sure didn't work here. But please do not scare the heck out of our staffs when taking books without notice and investigating media specialists. For a month, we've been told we were lying, we were inaccurate, we were misleading, and we even had 2 members invited to go with me to HR if they didn't like their job. Ladies and gentlemen, this is not a Republican issue. This is not a Democratic issue. This is about creating and following policies correctly. If there are concerns with books, let's have it
sir, your
done
time
up.
has expired. Our next speaker is Patricia Konstanescu.
From several school libraries. The announcement to parents that was sent in email was disturbing and offensive. I personally decide what is unacceptable for my child, not for someone else's. A government entity will not make that decision on my behalf, not in my country. I would like to quote Kurt Vonnegut's brilliant words to a school board in 1973. He said, "I'm supporters in the parking lot this evening. Thank you."
Our next speaker is Michael Garza.
Intended to bring my daughter up here. She's in first grade. She wanted to come up here and speak. And I kind of wish I had brought her, because then she could have had a firsthand history lesson on how Cobb resisted integration for 13 years after Brown versus Board of Education, because that's what it looked like outside before the meeting. It saddens me that we have educators in this building and that they're under attack from the outside and from within. Last week, a member of this board openly called for the termination of Reading Bowl volunteers. Their only crime was stepping down from their roles after failing to get assurances that their jobs would be safe if they participated. The district then went on to tell the media that they were liars, that this district would throw educators under the bus while protecting a man who has uttered racist slurs is appalling, that this district stokes fear in our librarians and media specialists to appease outside hate groups is sickening, that this district heard from Black students sharing their lived experiences of racism and ignored them, knowing that they'd eventually graduate and move on, is shameful, that this district heard from the Jewish community about anti-Semitism in our schools and all they offered were unfulfilled promises and an elementary school logo with Nazi symbols is disgusting. This has all happened under this superintendent's watch. He talks a big game, but we cannot believe what he says because we see what he does. We have no confidence in him, and this is why we demand new leadership. Our educators deserve a leader who supports them, and our children deserve a leader who values them for who they are and not for the recognition that they provide him. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Kirby Messina.
Hi, my name is Kirby Messina. I work for Georgia Tech as a data analyst, and I work every day to make sure our students have what they need. And I would hope that you guys would put students first, but your actions have shown that you do not. Children are smarter than you make them out to be. They have access to the internet, and the internet has a lot more than it had when I was a kid. So these books you say are pornographic, that's completely silly. They have access to everything and anything on the internet today. You say this is about protecting children, but this is not about protecting children. This is making sure that queer children stay in the closet and are scared. This is about making sure immigrant children feel less than their natural-born peers. This is about making sure that the black community does not know about their horrid past and the wonderful things that they have accomplished. You cannot do this. I will make sure that if you continue to do things like this, that I will work with like-minded peers and other organizations like Democratic Socialists in America to make sure you don't have your seats next time. I will be running for school board, so keep an eye out for me.
Our next speaker is Elizabeth Hudson.
Hello, my name is Beth Hudson, and I graduated from North Cobb High School in 2023. During my time within the Cobb County school system, I participated in the Helen Ruffin Reading Bowl from 4th grade to 12th grade. Over that 9-year period, I always found my new favorite books from the Reading Bowl list, and the organization shaped my love for reading, writing, and learning. This love for literature led me to major in English at the University of West Georgia under their honors program. I'm the person I am today because of the lessons I learned from the Reading Bowl books and because of the teachers who sponsored my Reading Bowl teams. The books taught me that everyone matters, and even though we all differ in race, religion, sexuality, class, nationality, and so much more, each student should learn acceptance, love, and most importantly, respect in order to become a successful adult. The teachers that sponsored the Reading Bowl teams showcase constant encouragement and support to all students. I believe that teachers should not fear termination because of the books their students read. The Cobb County Division of Helen Ruffin announced that Cobb schools will not participate in the Reading Bowl this year due to lack of job security for teachers. Following this announcement, the Cobb County School District released a statement claiming that the Reading Bowl can still commence. In reality, Cobb teachers will not participate in the Reading Bowl because they still fear for their jobs in regards to the censorship of books. Students should discover books that teach them valuable lessons and prepare them for the real world.
30 seconds.
Because of organizations like Helen Ruffin Reading Bowl and the passionate teachers who sponsor the Reading Bowl teams. I urge you to ensure job security for all teachers so they're able to teach students valuable lessons of respect, empathy, and self-worth and kindness. Literature makes the world a better place. We should not allow fear to dictate what we teach our children. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Gabriel Sanchez, to be followed.
Hello, my name is Gabriel Sanchez. I'm a product of Cobb Schools. I went to Walton High School. And I just want to mention again what happened earlier where we were waiting for 2 hours to be in public comment. And at the very last minute, you all changed where we had to sign up so that you could allow people who agreed with the majority in the school board to sign up, because you didn't like the fact that people who disagreed with you were lining up at such big numbers. This is a perfect example of what you're doing with our school district, which is censorship and book bans. You're censoring our right to free speech, and you're also trying to censor our kids' education. There is indoctrination in the school district, and it's coming from extremist right-wing ideology, from politicians and the elites who want to ruin our education, privatize it, and make sure that only things that right-wingers approve of is taught in our schools. When I went to Walton, I was taught that the Civil War was brought on by states' rights and not by slavery, which is factually incorrect. That's just objectively false. That is right-wing ideology being taught at our schools. So we have to stop denying the reality and the facts. And this is a fact. Trans kids and non-binary kids are real and they exist. And they need affirmation. That is a fact. And also, this is not some new phenomenon. Trans people have existed for thousands of years. And if you guys had invested in our education more, maybe you would know that. If people want to disagree with whatever is happening in that regard, they can disagree at home. They can teach their kids whatever they want in the privacy of their home. But you can't let one parent who disagrees with a certain book to ruin the education for all the kids, for all the other kids who overwhelmingly wanted to read that book, just because one parent disagrees with it. That is the authority. That is just a minority rule over the majority. We represent the majority in Cobb County. We want our kids to have free education because knowledge is power, and in order to empower our kids, we have to make sure they learn about everything and decide for themselves what they want to believe, not what you guys want them to believe. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Janice Kelly.
And until a few weeks ago, a longtime member of the Helen Ruffin Reading Bowl Steering Committee. As you know, 2 books that have won numerous national awards, including Best Fiction for Young Adults and School Library Best Book of the Year, were pulled from the shelves of every Cobb County school this fall. Media specialists all work very hard to find quality books for every student. We scour industry resource reviews and seek out these National Book Award books to add quality to our collections. But with over 20,000 books in every Learning Commons, you can't read every one. This year, an outside hate group influencer known only as David wrote an email to the county claiming we had pornographic books on our shelves, and the books were pulled over that very weekend, taken out of all Cobb schools. The county said staff would be held accountable to use materials aligned with board policy. What the board must have forgotten was that Cobb has a very strict removal policy, which states that only a parent or guardian may request that a book should be removed. There are multiple steps that must be taken, and they never happened here. The hasty removal of these books without due process undermines not only our established policy, but also the principles of intellectual freedom and diversity of thought. Since the firing of a Cobb teacher for reading an inclusive book to her fifth graders, even though a tribunal determined that she should not be fired, the world has changed for media specialists and teachers. Would you want to be responsible for the content of thousands of books in your school learning commons? The stress these media professionals have been under is immense. Teachers have removed classroom libraries, book fairs have been placed on hold, and the Helen Ruffin Reading Bowl Committee has been lied about and threatened. We should be able to curate a diverse and engaging collection of books without the constant threat of reprisal. Let our educators continue to guide our students to explore a wide array of literature to foster critical thinking and empathy. Let's uphold our established policy and ensure...
I'm sorry, that's time. Our next speaker is Jana Jensen.
Rodine Sims Bishop, a children's literature researcher and professor, said that in books, children need windows and mirrors. They need mirrors in which they see themselves and windows in which they see the world. Hi, I'm Holly Jensen. I'm 8 years old. I'm in 4th grade at Bullitt Elementary, and when I found out about the Helen Ruffin Reading Bowl in May, and I immediately wanted to join. I read all summer. I took notes. I'm not quite done yet, but I'm close. The books were beautiful, hard, silly, and sad. I cried happy tears and sad tears as I lived in the different worlds in these books. They have shown me windows to lives different from mine, and mirrors to how even very different people feel so many of the same things I feel. Please, please let us keep the Helen Ruffin Reading Bowl. The windows and mirrors in these books will make the world a kinder place. Thank you.
Our next speaker is George Moore.
My name is George Moore. I'm 16 years old. 2 things you must know about me is that I'm transgender and I'm gay. Not that long ago, it came to my attention that a certain group of people reported several books in school libraries as inappropriate. 2 of these books were revealed to me to be Me, Earl, and the Dying Girl, and more importantly, a book called Flamer. Both are award-winning books, but one stood out to me the most, Flamer. After reading this book, all I can say is that it is not inappropriate for at least a high school level. The book is about 14-year-old Aiden, a boy going through puberty and spending his summer at a camp. This book is highly praised and appreciated by people all over the world. So why, some may ask, is this not on school shelves? I believe it is not only because of some implied scenes, but because Aiden is gay. It is a big plot point in the book. Aiden struggles with his identity and if he is gay or not. But in the end, he finds out it doesn't quite matter. As a queer teenager who went through this and knows people going through something like that, I fail to see why this book should have been removed. If it is because Aiden is gay, does that not fall under discrimination? Which breaks several policies in which all schools should allegedly be following. Why remove the book if everyone is supposed to feel safe in their schools? Like they can be accepted no matter who they are. I know of several books that have much more inappropriate content in them that are in our middle schools. If those are not inappropriate, why is Flamer? Flamer and books just like it could help queer kids feel more seen, feel like they're safe to be out at school. But I know that seeing this being removed has not made me feel safer. It does not make me feel like I am being protected as many parents are claiming. It makes me feel as if I should not be there. Is my and other kids' safety less important than someone's parent not approving of a simple book? If a book about someone like me can't be there, can I?
30 seconds.
My safety shouldn't be a question. It should be a fact. Flamer may seem just like a book to some, but to others, it may be their whole life. If you don't like it, put it down. Don't ban the books we write. Ban the bigotry that takes them.
Our next speaker is Shannon Deason.
This meeting needs to understand that there was an orderly line of over 20 people waiting 2 hours early, including parents, teachers, and young students who drove from colleges hours away to be here, and there were some people who made a decision to move the sign-in outside, leading to chaos, and shame on the people who chose to speak knowing that they were not here in time to claim their spot. This is a letter from Mike Curato, the author of Flamer. To the students, this is for you. Regardless of the outcome of this book challenge and the other challenges that will come, there are things I need you to know. Remember, you have agency. It's hard to have others making decisions for you, but your life is in your hands. You have a voice. Use it. Don't let anyone silence you. Let it out. Speak it, sing it, write it, paint it, dance it. Censorship is fought with expression. That is your First Amendment right, no matter your age or station. Remember, you are the future. Remember this moment. Remember how you feel. Remember what everyone said. Soon you will be an adult member of the community. What rights will you uphold? What injustices will you fight to repair? Who else in your community has been relegated to the margins? How will you help them? Lead with facts and compassion. And above all else, know this: you deserve to be here, no matter who you are, what you believe, or who you love. When I was young, it was implied that there was no room in this world for someone like me, not unless I followed their rules. I tried to be the person everyone wanted me to be, and it broke me. Don't do that. Don't let anyone use shame to dictate how you should live your life. I almost lost my life to that lie, but I survived, and in living my truth, I have found the greatest joy. It may make some people uncomfortable, but their comfort is nothing compared to your safety and happiness. Remember, they can ban my book, but no one has the right to ban any of you.
Our final speaker is Mariah Sheik.
Hello, my name is Maria Sheik, and I'm a high school student here in Cobb County. I have attended Cobb County schools my entire life. I have read countless books and articles, but rarely have I seen someone like me represented in the material we read. However, in recent years, I have seen this start to change. I have seen diverse characters appear in books. I have seen real-life challenges and honest discussions represented in the classroom. This was empowering. For the first time, us minority students could feel seen, could feel understood. We have unique challenges, ones that are not easy to overcome, but can be greatly overcome by reading books about progress, about hope, about love. These representative books give us confidence, pride, and make us unafraid of what lies beyond the walls of our Cobb schools. But when we read about the banning of books and the firing of Miss Renuli, we felt very afraid. By banning our books, by banning representation for all students, regardless of gender, race, ethnicity, or sexuality, our identity is negated, making us feel lost and unsupported. The fundamental purpose of education is to prepare us for the real world, and part of this preparation entails exposure to a variety of ideas and perspectives. Cobb schools are supposed to be educating us to be the next generation of thinkers and leaders and innovators, but we cannot do this in a bubble without access to diverse viewpoints. By allowing free expression in schools, we would not only be encouraging imagination, curiosity, and open dialogue, but we would be fostering a culture of critical thinking, of tolerance and understanding. At the end of the day, free speech is the very foundation of this nation, of democracy itself, and if it is our responsibility to uphold the values that this nation was founded on, then we must not allow censorship and division to take hold of our society. When you burn books, you burn people as well. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, that's our final speaker.
Thank you to all our public speakers tonight. We appreciate you coming. Next, we have, Superintendent's remarks. Mr. Ragsdale.
Turning their backs when Ragsdale gave his statement.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chair, members of the board, appreciate the opportunity. I do not take our mission statement lightly. One team, one goal, student success. It seems like a simple declaration, one so incredibly obvious that it should be at the heart of what every school district seeks to do. Put student learning first. And the values of that mission are demonstrated by results consistently showing Cobb is already and assuredly the best place to teach, lead, and learn. And we will continue to be exactly that. We have a unique responsibility to Cobb's families who, by law, are required to place their children in the care and custody of our schools approximately 180 days a year. Along with the privilege of educating our students, we have an obligation to respect their families, cultures, and backgrounds. We must acknowledge and respect the choices some make, even if they may not be the choices others would make. Parents have a right to expect that when their child becomes a student and they are required to entrust them to our schools, we will make every effort to keep them safe. Unfortunately, not everyone agrees with our mission statement or those sentiments. There are those who believe Cobb schools are nothing more than a convenient battlefield for whatever their political cause. And that is what we are currently experiencing. And unfortunately, one of the first casualties is common sense. Our students, parents, team members, and community members have been bombarded with social media information that is almost entirely inaccurate. Some of this language is, in my opinion, absolutely calculated to frighten and disrupt. It is truly appalling, but we have radical organizations and politicians who are using these inaccurate fear-mongering tactics to scare and mislead the public solely for the purpose of fundraising within, but particularly outside Cobb County. Hopefully my remarks this evening will bring some clarification and common sense to this issue, and most definitely without ambiguity. First, the Helen Ruffin Reading Bowl. The Reading Bowl was never canceled nor put on hold by the district. No employee is or was ever being threatened with termination or even discipline for participating in the Reading Bowl. There has always been a parent permission form required for each student choosing to participate in the Reading Bowl. 2 district employees chose to exit their volunteer positions working on the Reading Bowl. Unfortunately, an email containing inaccurate information was sent to other volunteers throughout the district. This email was corrected once central office supervisors became involved. However, social media and some individuals still chose to propagate the wildly inaccurate information, causing further confusion. Bluntly, those individuals are doing nothing more than engaging in fear-mongering and are completely irresponsible in their actions and their statements. Secondly, the school book fairs. Book fairs have not been canceled nor put on hold by the district. Vetting processes have been communicated to schools for materials that will be a part of the book fair. Book fairs have always been up to the individual school whether or not they will be held and what companies they will work with. However, we will be looking into the companies with which the district will be working to conduct future book fairs, ensuring those companies agree to follow and abide by the district's policies and state law. The number of awards given to any book cannot be assumed to mean that those books are absent of lewd, vulgar, sexually explicit, obscene, or pornographic material and appropriate for our schools. The Cobb County School District is not engaging in book banning or book burning. We are not coming after the jobs of teachers or media specialists. We are not enforcing radical new policies and practices. We are not going rogue and refusing to follow our own policies. We are following well-established federal and state law and policies and practices of this district that have been with us for years, if not decades. We are not usurping the rights of parents to make key decisions regarding the upbringing and education of their children. The idea that we are book banning because of a particular viewpoint is simply not true. The district's media centers include and will continue to include books and other assets from a multitude of perspectives, cultures, and experiences. Our students will continue to be exposed to a vast array of diverse experiences, backgrounds, attitudes, and beliefs. Instruction in this district is built around the Georgia state standards, not any individual or group's political agenda. Cultural, historical, experiential, and viewpoint diversity are incorporated throughout the Georgia standards. We are not introducing new policies or practices. Long before last year, the district had a legal and moral obligation to keep students safe when their parents entrust them to us during the day. This includes protecting them from exposure to sexually explicit, obscene, pornographic, vulgar, and lewd material. The law has long held that the unique custodial and instructional mission of schools explicitly imposed this obligation. In 1986, the United States Supreme Court supported a school district disciplining a high school student for using lewd and vulgar language during a speech at school, declaring, quote, "Vulgar, lewd speech and lewd conduct is wholly inconsistent with the fundamental values of a public school education," end quote. Despite what politicians and social media are saying, this has consistently been the law in this state for over 50 years. The radical new idea is not that schools have an obligation to protect students, but the radical new idea is that all children should somehow be forced to encounter sexually explicit language in instruction while at school, an assertion that less than 5 years ago would have seemed ridiculous and dangerous, and one that the vast majority of educators and parents continue to find ridiculous and dangerous. I am also aware that those promoting this radical new idea that children should be exposed to lewd, vulgar, and sexually explicit material are contending this removal somehow violates our board policy on book reviews. That is also not true. Yes, we have a policy for parents to challenge materials they believe are inappropriate. However, as professional educators, we have an independent professional obligation to protect students from lewd and vulgar materials regardless of whether any parent, group, or outside entity files a complaint. It is both legally recognized and completely independent of our processes for handling parental or external complaints. As I previously stated, in this instance, when the district was made aware of inappropriate content contained in 2 books, we conducted a review of both books. That review demonstrated conclusively that the degree of sexually explicit, obscene, vulgar, and/or lewd material in these books required them to be removed immediately. As superintendent, my professional obligation to protect our students is independent of anyone else's. As superintendent, after I knew what was in these books, I could not attempt to shift responsibility. To do my job and execute I could not attempt to shift responsibility to other district employees or hide behind an allegation that, well, no parent has complained, my hands are tied. As the superintendent of the Cobb County School District, it is not usurping the board's authority to do my job and execute my professional and moral obligation to protect Cobb's students from being exposed to vulgar, lewd, sexually explicit, obscene, and pornographic material. So if you need someone to blame for deciding to remove the books Flamer and Me, Earl, and the Dying Girl, you can blame me. Despite what is being misrepresented on social media by political activists, politicians, and interest groups, these books were not pulled from our media centers in a casual way. We reviewed the books. I encourage everyone opposing our action to review them as well to see what is actually contained within the books. Our review immediately demonstrated the books contain content so vulgar and sexually explicit that it has no place in a public school media center. If a public commenter wished to read this content aloud in this very meeting, we would have to stop the broadcast because the FCC would classify the language in them as indecent and impermissible for us to broadcast. They contain grossly offensive and sexually explicit content that if a student uttered these statements to another student, there would undoubtedly be an outcry to suspend or expel the offending student. These are not stray remarks, but central themes of the books. For example, Me, Earl, and the Dying Girl is a little more than 300 pages long. There are approximately 300 instances of profane language that if a student in this district used in school, it would subject him or her to discipline under our code of conduct. It contains a multi-page graphic depiction of oral sex. Flamer is a graphic novel, so the indecent and highly sexual language is accompanied by illustrations, including those of nude children. Again, if you do not think there is a problem with students having unrestricted access to these books in a school media center, you are wrong. And hopefully, you do not know what is actually contained in these books. Since these two books were pulled, some media outlets highlighted the Fulton County School District removing two different books. It was determined that only one of those books was in only one of our media centers. After conducting a review, we discovered it too contained multiple instances of lewd and vulgar content and is no longer in that media center. Again, it does not matter the method of becoming aware of vulgar, lewd, sexually explicit, obscene, or pornographic material being present. It matters what action is taken. The Cobb County School District will not knowingly allow this material to be accessed by children in this district. Family choice. One lying well within what the U.S. Supreme Court recognizes one of our oldest and most fundamental rights as Americans, the right to raise our own children. Generally, as parents, you can expose your children to ideas and beliefs you may hold at whatever age you please. If you choose to do so, you can allow your elementary age children to watch rated R films in your home. You can also allow your children unrestricted access to the internet when public schools must abide by SIPA, the Children's Internet Protection Act, which is federal legislation requiring school districts to filter internet access for children. That's your choice when raising your children. Other parents also have these rights and may make different choices, and their rights to raise their children are no less than anyone else's. However, as educators, the state holds us responsible for educating all students and ensuring we do our best not to make those choices for any parents. Again, if you choose to allow your children to access sexually explicit, obscene, or pornographic material while in your house under your supervision, that is your decision. I, as superintendent, will not knowingly allow children in the Cobb County School District to access lewd, vulgar, sexually explicit, obscene, or pornographic material. Let me be very clear. Anyone working in education who knowingly provides students with access to sexually explicit, obscene, or pornographic material should not be in a position of educating other parents' children. We are also not prohibiting educators from incorporating non-district provided materials in their instruction. Educators who follow well-established CCSD board policy will continue to have the ability to introduce supplemental materials to the district's classrooms. However, that ability must be balanced against our responsibility to ensure a reasonable educator would find them useful, aligned to our instructional standards, and appropriate for both the child and the lesson. We are not creating an environment in which teachers should be in fear that utilizing supplemental resources could somehow cost them their job. Every teacher will continue to have the ability to request that we expand our district-approved resources to incorporate new materials. Every teacher will still have the ability to seek the guidance of his or her principal whether non-district materials are appropriate for use in his or her classroom. Not a single media specialist is going to lose his or her job simply because the school media center he or she supervises inadvertently contains books with age-inappropriate, lewd, vulgar, and/or sexually explicit content. Again, none of that was ever legitimately in question. I do not want our parents and community members to think for a single moment that Cobb educators believe your children should read anything they want or have access to anything they want. I have heard from a number of Cobb educators who are just as outraged, if not more so, than parents. I genuinely believe that they express the same sentiment of the vast majority of Cobb's educators who are dedicating their lives to the education of your children. However, as you might expect, in a district with over 19,000 employees, we do have occasionally one or two people who assert they know better than the elected board, the district's administrators, and parents, and may act on their own judgment rather than following clear policy. Fortunately, they seldom remain with us. I want to assure you that if we do have employees who lack the judgment and commitment of a reasonable Cobb educator and who are actively working to intentionally ensure your children have unsupervised access to vulgar, sexually explicit, lewd, obscene, or pornographic materials in violation of this board's policies, we will continue to treat those actions as insubordination and apply the appropriate level of discipline. We are going to continue to review the books we currently have in our media centers, and we will remove books containing sexually explicit, obscene, or pornographic material. We will also ensure that companies adhere to board policies and state law in order to do business with this district when purchasing books. I want to be very clear in closing. This situation is not over. This situation is not about politics. This situation is not about faith-based or religious beliefs. This situation is about right and wrong, good and evil. The sexualization of children can never be defended nor allowed in any context, especially in education. There is no middle ground in this situation. There is no room to flip-flop on where you stand. You are either in favor of providing inappropriate material to children, or you are against it. And I assure you, I am against it, and I will not be moved.
Removed. Ragsdale's comments came after an anti-Ragsdale rally was held outside the school board building earlier this afternoon.
At a separate rally, a group of students with the Georgia Youth Justice Coalition talked about their concerns.
As teachers do their best to give students a full and truthful education, there are board members seeking to limit, censor, and restrict what's being taught in the classroom.